So hello and welcome to this walkthrough of the Acterys demo. Initially, what I would recommend to do is to prepare a few things. On the one hand, I would start a Power BI desktop session with the Acterys planning for any Power BI model PBIX file. Also make sure you've got the latest version of Power BI Sync installed, and then open a browser session with a session to the modeler. Then you don't have to go through this, what I'm just doing here. But yeah, you have to also be a little bit careful, because you will be logged out if it's inactive for too long. As a general suggestion, I'm using a separate browser profile here in Edge, where I'm only doing my demo, so you don't get interference from other things that you might do in the browser. That this is really entirely for Acterys demonstrations. So the browser open, and then open up the Power BI environment, potentially the powerbiplanning.com user. If you're using that one, that is already a favorite. On the start screen, open it, make sure it's loaded on the right page and everything is showing. I normally start from overview, and that is pretty much it. So then I would, depending on what the requirements are, start in the modeler. If it's an apps opportunity, I would start with the apps. And with the apps, it's very simple. So you just go to integration, mention that we have all these apps to these software as a service, accounting and ERP solutions. And it's a super simple process. You can just click on add, connect to the system of choice, and it will then automatically create the data model that you can fully control in the modeler. So you can switch to the modeler, show them the dimension. So this is a sample. This obviously varies depending on the app, but you can show them the structure, typically the accounts. You can see this is the account structure that was with the apps completely automatically generated, but you have full control now to edit this as required. And this can either be a free text edit, you can just type something in here, or this can be based on validations, for example with a linked column. And then you also have the option to create your own columns, for example mappings, multiple language, whatever it is. The user is here in full control. I wouldn't save anything here, so just cancel this, and then you're back in the modeler. If it's a more enterprise-oriented presentation, you can go through how we can link existing data, and there's a few options. So it's either the Cube Wizard, which is more the proof of concept tool, so to generate the data model very quickly, where you just point to a sample file. So in the demo again, we have these sample files, and I typically use this one, this accounting data set. And then you just go through the process. You say, okay, this is the sample file. You have now the option to classify the columns. So this would be a dimension. Make sure just that if you're using an existing one, you get an error message here. So then what I do is I normally add a 1 here, then I'm normally pretty sure that this is not already there. So you say, okay, this is a dimension, then this one I don't need, so it gets by default ignored. Oops. This one is one that I don't need, that gets ignored, so we can leave it at that. This one I want to use as a time dimension. Can specify the granularity for planning, typically month is enough. And yeah, here we see the problem, this already existed, so again a 1 here. Then I want to set up a account hierarchy, but I want to use as the main identifier the name. So I'm using this here as the dimension with account name. And again, maybe just put a 1 there. And then I can now add hierarchies to this. I can say, hey, this is a attribute of account name 1. Then maybe I want the account class here as well. It's also account name 1. The time here we don't need anymore because we already have it. The scenario is typically relevant. So that's a data type dimension. For these ones at the moment, I'll leave them. If this is a zero thing, if you have a zero customer, you can say yes, you can add those as well. So to manage tracking categories. And then finally, you just specify the value column that typically has, for financial systems, the balance of the transaction. And then you just put a name in here, finance 1. You click on create cube, confirm, and that generates a data model. That's typically pretty impressive that you can create. Okay, yeah, so this is something that you have to be careful of. With the time dimension, you have to make sure that you have a date here that falls into the sample data set. So here you see, I put here as a start date 2020. My data is here from 17 and 18, so I need to go here earlier. So I specify here, maybe just to be sure, 16, January 16. And let's try this again. So, and then you see immediately this new data model with the dimensions that we've used. You can show that the dimensions are there. So, for example, if we use the work name and then show them, okay, the structure was automatically generated. And obviously that can be edited again as any other components. So this is the cube wizard. Then the other option is to show instant links. You can already refer to the blue dimensions here are instant link dimensions. This means they are linked to a source data set. And the black ones are dimensions that are only stored in Acterys. Dimension get created directly from here, either as normal Acterys dimensions, for example, copy and pasting from Excel, or as link dimension using the instant link technology. And for that, we just put in a name, for example, dim account. We choose the data source, so you can refer that you can set up data sources in Acterys directly, for example, pointing to an existing data warehouse. And then you can choose tables of use from that data warehouse. So for example, we can take now the account, and I normally use an existing dimension. For example, dim account, and then you just explain you can now use any of the columns in this table, either in a grid or as selectors, where you have to specify two mandatory ones, the ID and the name, so a unique ID and a unique name, and then the users can choose in the selector mode the columns that they want, type and group, and then once you have that you can just create it. And so then you can point to the installing dimension that was just created. You can explain that this is linked to this source table. You can either refresh it on demand if I click this button, or if you use the connector scheduler you can set up automated refresh cycles. So you would create a new refresh schedule. You select the source, and it would be installing in this case. You specify the time, for example, every day at 3 p.m. and then you can specify what tables you want to automatically synchronize between the source system and the carriers, and just refer to again that this is according to our mantra of having no ETL, respectively very simple ETL. So that was Cube Wizard and InstaLink. And then while we are talking about InstaLink, we can either start with that or just say, okay, this is another option for InstaLink, but in this case, InstaLink is not driven by a data warehouse table, but directly from Power BI. So you can automatically plan and enable anything that you have in Power BI by installing the Power BI sync option. So this is an external tool. You can just start it directly from Power BI, and you will get this kind of interface. You can now either point to a Power BI dataset in the cloud or a particular Power BI file. You can manage the update cycle, so similar to what we've seen before in Instalink, this can be completely automated. And in addition to the data, you can also distribute Power BI reports and dashboards, and this is set up here in this button. So just as an example, you can demonstrate, okay, in this case I want to do it based on this Power BI file. This Power BI file has data from Dynamics, but this could be anything, so any of the 600 connectors in Power BI. I click on Fetch Tables. This will get now all the tables in this model, and I can specify I want a particular table. So this will read now the structure. So now I've got the structure here for this particular Power BI table with all the fields. And then with one button I can synchronize it to the data warehouse. And this is either SQL Server or Snowflake. And then with another button I can turn it into an Acterys dimension, which is the same Instalink dimension that we've seen before. So in Better FP&A we already have the dimension there. So you can then point to and say, hey, this main accounts dimension that you just saw in Power BI is now here with exactly the same details. So this is data integration. Then from a application logic perspective, you can mention we also cover the application logic in the modeler. With the apps, this is automatically available. So you go to application settings and then can specify what is your financial year, for example, for the particular system, what are the start dates, end dates, what's the financial year, and it automatically generates the calendar. You can set up the automated currency conversion, so what's your main group currency, what are the currencies that you want to convert to. The system will automatically load all the rates, and in the end this will end up in a cube or model that stores all the rates automatically, so the user doesn't have to worry about it. But there's a currency exchange model then automatically generated that contains the new rate. If you want to have a look at it, you can do a pivot on that. And then show, okay, if I want to see this now, this is the data here. And the cool thing is you can even directly override it here. So if you want to have here now a rate of 0.7, you can directly edit this here on the front end as well. So this is pretty much what I normally would show in the modeler. And I would then move on to the front end side. If you're talking about the apps, typically the best way is to say, okay, in the integration for your particular system, you have then in the solution this button here, and that will automatically lead you to the Power BI model. So if you have to an app demonstration, it's typically not bad to have this already open. If not, then you just open it like I do here. So you just go to the respective template. So typically I show xero, but because that's the most comprehensive one that we have. But of course, if you have another app that you demonstrate, then you would use that. And then you just show them, you know, this is the automatically generated dashboard. From this dashboard, I can then jump immediately to the report. And then you show them, okay, so now you've added your different companies. They're all automatically here. You've got the consolidated results here. I can look, of course, also at the single company results. And you have a perfectly set up Power BI model. But this is still completely configurable to your needs. So if I go to the underlying report here, I have all the editing options that you have in Power BI to edit this in whatever way you want. So you automatically get the data model here. That obviously varies depending on the system. So here for xero we have a fair few tails. This is not even all xero tails, this is just a part of it that I used in the template. There's more. If you want to, you can refer to the difference that we have the data warehouse tables that you can't edit. And if you want, you can refer to that we have the staging tables that you can't edit and the data warehouse tables that are editable, so all up, and the schema of the app. And you can just take them through, and so, you know, we have all these reports, group performance, sales, that also have all the interaction items configured properly. So if you click on something, everything else adapts. You have the AI features set up properly. Let me see if I find one where we have a little bit more data. Get a comparison. Yeah, so here we have one, and this is not set up here, but sometimes, or for some of the reports, we have this set up when you go to analyze in Excel. Let me see if I can fix this quickly. So no, this is not possible here because this is using a direct query all-up model, and if it's direct query, Power BI doesn't offer insights. Let me see if we have another one. So if we go now to this one here. And here you see we have it. So I can now click on explain the increase and it will come back with the result. So make sure you're using the Acterys Xero reporting consolidation, the normal app that doesn't have direct query in that, and these insight features work. And the other thing that I typically refer to is, this is just not normal Power BI. We have these very comprehensive, powerful visuals that are designed for proper financial reporting. The users can drill down, you can set up the subtotals, which is not that simple in Power BI, but here it's super simple because you can just go to edit mode and then edit them. So here again I can't because I'm in the apps. So in the apps mode, so you have to go to the underlying report and then go to the edit mode here. Click that away, edit. And now I have the edit option here, where I can see now the subtotal calculations. If you like, you can show them how you can create a new one. So if I want to have now a relative gross profit here, I can go add row before and say this is now a GP percentage, and GP percentage is GP divided by revenue. So I immediately get this here. At the moment not very nicely formatted, but again the other strength is that you can set this then exactly up as you want with the correct percentage format, and you've got this here. You can even use your own format strings. For example, if you want to have 3 digits here, then you can just put the format string here in a way you want it, and then also all the underline options with this with the styles. So for example, if I want the EBIT now, oops, this was wrong. Be careful if you are on another calculation, this will change that one. So if you want to edit, for example, the style of the EBIT, we can see EBIT is now using 1, but if we change that to 2, now we see style 2 has a double underline, and the styles are managed here. So if I want to edit these styles, I can even say here then I want this underline. This is style, sorry, this is row style 3, we want 2, and 2 I want a underline color in, I don't know, green, just to show how easy it is to set these things, and then every item that's using the style would be changed accordingly. So this doesn't make a lot of sense, so I'll change this back. So this just as a bit of a thing that this is not just normal Power BI, but Power BI on steroids with the reporting visual and the other reporting visualizations that we have, for example variance, where you can also switch between the IBCS ways of display, so waterfall charts and absolute, relative variation. But then also, of course, all our planning visuals, so the 6 planning oriented visuals where you have all the planning functionalities that you can imagine. And so that's pretty much it, what I would show from a apps perspective. If you want to, it's typically not bad to also show the Excel templates. So if you go to the downloads area, so our normal downloads folder, there is a template there that's called Xero Report Template. You can open that. That will open up the Excel spreadsheet. And then if you want, you can start one of the add-ins, so either the online one that is very new that most of you will not have because it's not yet released, but I can show it to you already here. So the cool thing is this is server-based, so you only install the manifest once, and then it will automatically update. So if there's a new version, it will be automatically available for the users. The admin can install this centrally, so they can say, okay, I want all my users or these particular users to have this, and then it's automatically there for the users. They don't have to worry about anything. This works in any environment. This works in the browser. This works for Excel Mac. And initially, I just log on with my username and password. It has automatically recognized me here. So I'm now logged on, and this gives me now all the functionalities. So on the one hand, the reports, so the live link to the data model. The first time this will take a while, so it was pretty quick this time. But this might take a while to try it before you demonstrate it, and then you can just switch to a particular detail here, and I can see the data changing. And then I have all the options in the Excel add-in as well, so not just the reporting, but the planning as well. So I can write back here, maybe not on actual, so you probably want to switch to a different scenario. But you can write back here as well, which I want to do because I don't want to change these actuals. And likely can't anyway because they're restricted by user rights. But what I typically show is the editing capabilities. I can say I want to edit now, for example, a dimension, and then you have the dimension here, where with the ease of Excel, I can now edit all these things here by dragging and dropping and lookups and so on. You can see in the online add-in you also have the audit trail, so I can see what are the changes that I've made. I can even remove them if I don't want them. And then with just a click of a button I can send them back. And this will then automatically update the central data model for everyone that's working with it. If you like, you can go to the modeler and show it that this has now updated there as well. The new Excel add-in has a few very cool features. You can specify, what columns you want, so you don't have to choose all of them. You have cool filters, so you can say, I only want to have particular items here. For example, if I look at the account group, I only want particular account groups here. So let's say only the assets. And then this will filter automatically the dimension. You see this is lightning fast now because it's much quicker now because it only has to load certain elements, and this is driven by the API. So it only has to fetch these data points, and you can also see the filters there. The other cool thing is here, it will visually now show specific column types. So for example, if you use a calculated column, it will show them in a particular column. So these are the ones that you can't edit because they're calculated. And you also have a few other options, like what you just saw before, is you can specify columns as to exclude from refresh. So you can do in these columns whatever you want. It will store it in Excel, but not in the data model. So this is just a quick thing for the Excel reports when you're demonstrating apps, and I'll move then on to the demo of the more enterprise planning features. And so again, you either have this already open. What you can do now is you can ask your users, do they like dark formats or the light format. So here we have the light one, and it's now very quick to switch. So you can just switch here, and this will switch now to the, or not, because this is not properly set up. Have to fix that. But normally this would open up the dark version, and vice versa. You can see in a second if the switch to the light version works. So this is, make sure you're on the right report. Let's see now if we can switch to the light one. Yeah, that's working. So, and then depending on the preference, this is a bit of interaction with the audience. You can then continue with either the light one or the dark one. I prefer the dark one, so I'll stick with that one. And then you can introduce it. In this sample, we cover nearly any imaginable aspect of planning. You can ask them, what are the ones that are relevant to you. So you can maybe, read them quickly and say, okay, we can show general, typical forecasting processes, either as a workflow or standalone, rolling forecast, financial reporting multi-language, AI-driven forecasting, Java-based planning, project planning, sales planning goals that's connected with the Power BI goals, allocations. It's a good way to show allocations. So to allocate data according to predefined rules. And then the more integrated planning options like HR planning, capital expenditure, financing. You can explain the integrated planning, the combination of all these that end up in the cash flow, where all these aspects are taken into account, calculated properly, for example, the depreciations, the cash investments, the loans, and it will calculate the cash flow accordingly, maybe even open it. So this is in the end where it then all comes together, and it will take all the logic into account, the logic we have already, but it's completely editable to the particular project requirements. So what I normally do is here, you start on the main page explaining this is the forecasting or the general management dashboard. We explain I've got my KPIs here, I can see the group, I've got all the elements, that if I click on anything here, everything else will adapt. So if I click on, for example, this bar here, I will see then automatically only the results of this particular organization. I have other features. When I move the mouse pointer there, I get smart tooltips, so I see what's the breakdown of this particular value. I have the details across different aspects of the company. So these are financial results. I have the sales results here. If I move the mouse pointer to the absolute variance, where I had a bit of an issue here, I can see now automatically rank what has driven this variance. And I can see we were particularly good in this area, North America, LL Touring handlebars. We were way above budget. But we have also a few issues where this is below budget, but it looks like this is to the prior year, so this year we're actually doing quite well. Now this is actually, we're not doing, 20% below. So if we look at this further, we would see, this is sorted from positive to negative. Maybe use another one when you're demonstrating with the positive ones, because then you see it as well. So if I look at this one, I can see, okay, the reason for this 192% variance, this positive variance, is in Road 150 and North America. And so this is the dashboard. I can see now I have a forecast of 19.4 million. I've now realized that I look at the results, I'm 85% above revenue, 400% above my profit forecast, that I need to adjust my forecast. And I can now jump to the detailed areas again, showcasing the integrated planning. So I can see here now the sales planning results, and you can explain it. So this is my product hierarchy. You can look at this now by companies, by salespeople, whatever hierarchy you want. I can look at whatever scenario. In my case here, I want to adapt my forecast, and I can now do this with all the Acterys features that we have. So additive entries, relative increases, repeating a particular number on the hierarchy, or projecting forward, so having a particular number until the end of the period. So you can show, okay, if I want to now touring increase that seems to be the biggest product here. Let's say I know already this touring will sell much better than expected and has already sold much better. I want to change this to 1.5 million. So I can do this directly here and see now my total results will go up to 3.5 million. I can say, hey, I will even be better than that. I want to now increase this to 3.7 million. I can do this now. No, sorry, not I. This should be just 3.7. And so then I've done the splash. If I click on refresh, you'll see the results of this splash. It's taking a little bit to recalculate. And so I can see now, no, this is not refreshed yet. So now we have it. I can see now that my change of the 1.5 million has now increased to another 42,000 because of this change. So it was automatically distributed according to the existing distribution. So, and then we can go back. This was a fairly low change, but we should see a change here, and then demonstrate, if I refresh this, that my new forecast has gone up. Takes a little bit to refresh. Might you talk your way through that. And so in the end, what we'll see is I can immediately see, okay, how has this change affected my, so this is now 19.48%, the goal for the overall year. The other thing that you can demonstrate is the typical matrix orientated planning, so where we have the matrix visual, but of course always in conjunction with whatever else Power BI offers, so the normal Power BI elements, the filters, and then the same thing. I recommend to always do it on cost of sales. The other ones are a little bit tricky because there's calculated items there where the results are not as expected. They're not incorrect, but they're not as expected because it will calculate things that can't be taken into account by the top splash. So when you have a top splash, the splash will never know the calculation that's involved there. Or you could even set this up, but it's not set up here. And then the same thing, you just bottom, top down, and then you demonstrate the workflow where you can change the workflow status you submitted. That will then automatically kick off the email to the manager. It will lock the form so they can't change it anymore. And in my overview page, I will then see, okay, this organization has submitted their budget. The other one, again, depending on the interest of the audience, you can also ask them, what parts are you interested to see here? Is what I show, because it's typically a quite sexy thing, is the driver-based planning, where we have this visual planning, different drivers. So we have the quantity, we have the prices, we have tariffs, we have exchange rates. All these obviously can be exactly set up as the users want with whatever many drivers they want. And then I can show here, okay, if we change this here, I can immediately see what are the implications with 46% above the comparison value. If I change this, I can then immediately see how is this affecting all the other aspects and the KPIs that I'm using on this report. So I'm not sure why this is taking longer. Normally this should be a bit faster. So it's concept raised. This was just a single one that should normally be a bit faster. Okay, it wasn't too bad. So, and then 0.5, 0.8 is likely because of this little change not changed that much. So maybe if you do a bit of a bigger change, so there was a little bit has changed, not much. But we see it, and then the same thing here, where I typically use R500, so we do a price increase from April to 500, so we've got 0.5, 1.1. If I save this now and refresh, you will then see, okay, what are the implications of this price change? Obviously, this is a fairly detailed aspect. So, yeah, we can then refresh this report. Let's see if we see a bit of a change here. Yes, so this has gone up to now 1.6 million and 0.7 because of this price change. So that's driver-based planning. Project planning is using the Gantt chart. Again, if the audience is interested in that, here you have the typical Gantt chart display, but in difference to the other ones that are out there, here you can really edit things. You can edit the start dates and progress. You can assign resources to it. They will all be saved. When you right click, you can add new tasks to it. So if you want to, you can demonstrate these aspects there. The next page that I quickly want to explain is allocations. So with allocations, you can demonstrate how planning numbers in a particular cost center can be distributed to other cost centers according to a distribution. In this case here, it's a arbitrary distribution that you can set here. So for example, if we increase central division and then reduce adventure works, typically you aim that you can get to 100 here. It doesn't really matter, the principle is the same. So we have now 8, 16, 61, so much more in central division. And when you enter a value in HQ, HQ is the sending cost center, and that gets then distributed to all these other ones. So here we have all other ones apart from HQ. And if you now put something in HQ, so let's make this 50,000 and then save it, then this will apply this distribution. So if we refresh the report here, we should see a higher share on, sorry, I forgot to save this. This is a bit tricky here. So we saw this got now distributed. So we still have the 50,000 there, but a lot in Central, in Australia, and then a little bit in Adventure Sector. So this is actually all correct. I thought I had forgotten to press save, but I pressed save here, and I can see this was now distributed. So the HQ entry according to the distribution here. So this is just to demonstrate how we can realize allocation scenario where data is allocated from one cost center to other cost centers according to a distribution. This could also be, for example, a headcount. So depending on the headcount in a particular cost center, this gets distributed, and you can mention that. Talking about headcount, the next one that I quickly want to show you is HR planning. HR planning, for those that are coming from a multidimensional background, is quite challenging because multidimensional databases are not really suitable for this. Our approach with using relational ones and having the multidimensional ones is very well suited here. So here we have the employee dimension, where you can manage all the master data of the employees, and then you can either edit existing records, with all the features that table edit has. For example, you can choose from a date picker. Sometimes you have to click at the bottom here to get to the bar, and then the other ones as well. So, and for example, I could send here now, set here now all the HR parameters, the departments. Those are linked columns that, if you want, you can demonstrate start date, end dates. Again, the date picker. And we have also a current flag here. We can demonstrate the Boolean. So if the database is a Boolean field, then you will get the checkbox here. And so what this does is it will take the monthly salary, and when you save it, allocate this according to start and end dates into the future with all the respective HR calculations. And you can then override this. So for example, if you want to simulate a bonus in a particular period, just click on that here and say, okay, this guy gets a bonus now, and that's now 70,000. And this will then automatically adjust the HR expenses. And the on costs are in the parameters. So if you look at the parameter page, here you can manage all the parameters. So for example, superannuation 401k, whatever other parameters here. This is just a normal dimension like any others, and you can edit it like any others, either on the total here or on the detail level, as with all the functionality in the Acterys dimension edit. And what you can also see in the parameters is the parameter for the rolling forecast closing date. I think we haven't covered this yet. So that's another one here, a planning example for rolling forecasts. So if you look at that, you have here a typical rolling forecast requirement. So up until this cutoff date that you can define here, and you can also jump to this parameter report directly from here by clicking on this button. So you get there. And you see the cutoff date here is now October. So if we go back to the report, we'll see until September the actuals, and then from that point onwards the forecast. And so what the users can do now, they can either on the total level, for example, I want to make this now 20,000. And then just refresh, and we see now that the new value was applied. If we drill down here, we can see the breakdown of the 20,000. If we go down, we see how it was broken down to the detailed levels, and obviously we could adjust it on the detailed levels as well with all the functionality that the matrix provides. So maybe quickly a look at CapEx. CapEx allows you to plan for CapEx items. So you can see a list here of CapEx items. In the end, this is a dimension where you can add the CapEx items with their particular details. What's the purchase value? When was it purchased? What's the useful life, salvage value, and the organization. And to demonstrate this, you can either create a new one here and say this is, I don't know, the new network, and then this has a purchase value of 50,000. We're purchasing this on 2020, let's say 0101. We can use this for 5 years, and there's a salvage value of 10,000. And this is part of organization 1. This is actually something that we should adjust. I'll just made a note here that you don't have to use the ID, but can directly select this with a linked dimension here. And that's it. So now we have adjusted this. And I mean, this was now 2021. No, the network was 2020. So we will see the new investments. So, I'm not sure what organization 1 is. It's really something we need to fix. Yeah, but you see now here new investments 50,000, and this is this new $50,000 network investment, and it calculate the depreciations also correctly, and this will then also follow through in the, will update the cash flow as well. Financing is similar. Here we manage loans, so the users can put in their financing instruments. For example, if the cash flow shows that we're below the red line with our cash reserves, we can then start to plan for loans. And actually we see here the cash movement is below the red line, but the actual cash balance is above, so here we wouldn't really need it. And then you can add the new loan here, fill out all the details, loan name, so you can see this is automatically named. This is a setting in the visual that this is automatically providing a name. This will likely be overwritten, then you can select the intervals and all the other detail, the loan amount, start date, end dates, interest rates, the scenario in which you want to apply this loan, and the organization where you want to use it. You can see at the moment this is using IDs here. We will be improving this soon, that you can also just select this here directly from the drop down box as a link dimension. This is fairly old, this loan management, this is not yet done there. But if they're all set correctly and saved, then this will recalculate and show the correct amount now, the new total debt and interest calculations, and will then also be reflected on the cash flow. Another one that's typically good to demonstrate is the modeling in Power BI. So any relational table, any dimension, you can directly modify. The users can modify here, but this is all based on user rights, so they can only do what they are allowed to do. We have special features like the pictures. We have the clickable URLs. We have all the validations. So these things are good to show here. So for example, if you want to change the date, you can see you've got the date picker here. Some other automated fields we have here, for example, with the price, there's validations that you can't enter strings. The product line, you can see, is a link dimension here which you can choose. So it's a good way to demonstrate the capabilities of the table edit visual. And so what you see here is the new grid, the grid edit mode. So from version 1.7, which is very new, which is already here available in Power BI in the demo. You don't need to do this anymore by row level, but you can do this anywhere now. So anywhere on the grid, you can do your edits, and when you finish, you just click on on save. So this will automatically change if you have changed something. So you see, this is also nice that you can see now where have you changed something. And then once you finished, you can press here on save, and then this will be finished. So pretty cool new features in dimension edit, and this works for all the other dimensions. I typically demonstrate product because we've got the pictures here. Over account, that's something that the users typically, or the audience typically is using as well. So these are good to demonstrate. Maybe employees can be good as well. But that's already the same thing that you have in the HR report as well. Dynamic CRM is a specialized one. That's a report that we did for an event in Germany, likely not that relevant for you unless you have a German audience. The balance sheet goes with the integrated planning if you want to demonstrate it, so that we cover all the aspects, the operational planning, the cash flow, and the balance sheet, so the connection of the three. On the fly simulation, to be honest, not really relevant anymore. This was just simulations where you can drag on a slider. It works, but I don't see why this needs to be used in this day and age. But if you want to, you can. Similar with scorecard view, it's using the Power BI scorecard visual, where you have the typical scorecard. As you can see, it's not that slow. But you have the scorecard structure here, you have things like sparklines here and the typical things that are used there. But that's read-only, so you can't edit anything. This is not our visual. This is just really to demonstrate balanced scorecard requirements. Workflow status is not bad. This is a report that you can demonstrate so that the users can see the status of the workflow. We have a part of this on the main page. You saw that already, where you can see who has submitted their plans, and then here you can also do the setup, which user is part of what role in what organization, and so you can set this up here as well. Tasks is an interesting one. So this is a Power App that we've developed that automatically allows you to manage planner tasks. So if you're using Microsoft Teams and you're using Planner there, this is what we access here. So you can select, for example, a particular team. You can select particular plans, and then you can look at the progress. So if I want to see, for example, the ones that are in progress and not started, I can see them here now. And then you have the option to directly edit these tasks directly from here, and this will then modify the tasks in Teams. Another report that's typically important to show is the governance. For governance purposes, is audit trail. So this just shows that everything in Acterys gets recorded. So all the operations get recorded. So you can then filter. I want to see what has a particular user done in the system in a particular cube in a particular time period, and you can then see what they have done. Employees, not that relevant, to be honest. This is just employee master data management. We already have that in the dimension edit, but if you want, this is here also separately now. Convention is just conventions where we specify what are the colors that we're using for what. This is just a cosmetic thing. Parameters we've already discussed. FX rates is the currency exchange rates that are automatically managed by Acterys, and as with anything else, with everything else, this is can be accessed directly in Power BI and also edited there. A report that I typically don't show. I'm also not sure what is taking so long to load. So yeah, anyway, so if you want to, this can be demonstrated. I can see this is still refreshing here. Now it's there. So you can then edit the exchange rates here as well. The only other ones in these ones here is copy that you probably want. So if you want to demonstrate how you can copy scenarios, this is a great way here. So here we have one of the conditions twice. But the way this works is so it will automatically read from the filters the initial from to setting. So I want to copy from Q1 to Q2. That's what's selected here. So it will automatically take that into account. It's just to demonstrate that, and then you can add as many additional ones as you like. So for example, I want to copy for a particular scenario name. So I want to copy, for example, my actuals from the first quarter into the forecast scenario of the second period, and then that's added as a condition. If you click on copy, that gets copied. It's typically very fast, but I'm not doing it now to not mess up my data, but this really all works. So yeah, this concludes the overview of the demo. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact us. If you have any feedback, just use the sales marketing channel, the MS Teams environment, or contact us directly. And yeah, good luck with your presentations. If we can assist in any way, let us know.